What's funny, Thorin,
And
is
didn't
that
you have a post that showed like LEC was just trying to hire like some cheap person like for literally one of those jobs?
So
You had one, right?
that's a fun one. So Gravity
Yeah, do it.
Media is Riot's production partner. And so Riot basically had this plan, and they're like, we're going to create 3 broadcast centers that are all 8 hours apart. So there's one in Seattle, by the way, and as I understand, there weren't a lot of people up in Seattle, but the Seattle one got hit super hard as well. Then there was the one in Dublin, which is Striker, which is the most complete one. And I think there's supposed to be one in Asia, I believe in Shanghai as well. So the idea is that they have these 3 broadcast hubs that are each 8 hours apart, so they can kind of cover worldwide broadcasts from central locations. And their partner in this is a company called Gravity Media. Now, Gravity Media is a huge, huge production company. And they have a bunch of full-time people that then they assign to work on Riot broadcasts. So it's a way for Riot to, have a partnership that doesn't chain them to a bunch of full-time employees. So Gravity Media, a bunch of the people who work in Dublin work for Gravity Media.
Right.
Gravity Media has also been hiring in Seattle for Riot. And very curiously, there are 2 broadcast engineer positions open, one in Seattle and now one in Berlin. The one in Seattle says, Thorin, it is specifically for Riot Games. The one in Berlin says that it is a full-time job for a client that is working in esports. Okay. And so remember that they just fired a bunch of engineers, broadcast engineers from LEC. Then they had to bring in people from Dublin in order to fulfill those positions temporarily, because otherwise the broadcast was fucked, which is the only reason that it didn't look terrible right after those firings. And now Gravity Media is going to hire a full-time broadcast engineer to be loaned to the LEC. And so they have basically just completely back-channeled that, probably for less money, obviously.
Of course, almost certainly, yeah.
Is it foul play under German law? I don't know. I do find it very suspicious that for literally the same job title, broadcast engineer, they say in Seattle it's working for Riot. In Berlin, they keep the client's name blank. That is suspicious to me as to why they would do it that way. So it does make me wonder if they're trying to like skirt it. They probably can't hire the people they just laid off to do this job, because that would almost certainly be in violation of German law. Yeah. But maybe if they hire a different person, because technically they're working for Gravity Media, that the shenanigans, wouldn't be noticed by the German government. I will say there's another funny anecdote. I will tell you, Thorin. So I was chatting with some people, and there was an internal town hall at Riot about the layoffs, of course. And one of the questions that was asked is, are the executives in the esports division taking any kind of pay cuts?
Yeah, totally reasonable question. Yeah.
Do you know what the answer was, Thorin?
And I guess no. Probably getting a raise. If they get a raise by any chance. Come on,
well, there's so much more money now that they created layoffs. No, because the reason they gave was that because executive compensation is highly dependent on bonuses, and because the company is not doing well, they would not be receiving bonuses. Ergo, they would be receiving a pay cut from their compensation package.
The disingenuous way of explaining it ever. Yes, I agree. Indeed.
Also, there isn't any clarity on how bonuses are calculated, obviously, right? And they're not revealing what those bonus packages look like.
On wasn't it like every 1,000 souls you get for Satan, then you get like oh shit, I'm thinking of hell. My bad. I was totally on the wrong track there. Whatever. My bad.
So there's no way for.
And I'll put a bow on that thing earlier, because the one part I fucked up on the example from LA earlier is, those videos you get in the modern day, you often see them on Twitter, where it'll be someone riding around like some area like that in LA, or famously like in San Francisco. And those areas where they have like massive drug abuse problems, like you'll see people really at these like encampments, like just stood there sort of like as if they're in like a fucking alternate dimension, like they look like they're in a K-hole, like, they just stood there doing like this. Imagine that, but the guy's wearing a Timo hat. That's basically That's all I'm saying. That's how it'll be now. Imagine you just see that team. Are you okay, man? I used to work on Garen balance. He's gone, man. He's gone. It's over. Shout it out, Monty. Shout it out.
I mean, with the way these people have been acting about these layoffs, you wouldn't be surprised to see that kind of trauma. They're acting like being laid off from Riot is the single worst thing that could possibly happen to a human being.
Well, but yeah. Some would say when you have sold out all your soul, your integrity, your friends, your entire industry to China and Saudi Arabia, that when you then get fired like cynically by those people, you might feel like you got nothing left in some ways, you know. It's kind of a shit deal, some would say. So yeah.
But I did think it was hilarious that the answer would be like from the executives, well, we're not cutting the compensation, but maybe we don't get as big bonuses. But also, you don't technically know that our bonuses aren't tied to reducing headcount and therefore freeing up money in the budget. So we're not going to tell you what those bonuses were. It's outrageous. By the way, I'm just going to put this out there for you guys. You know, executive bonuses are great and all, but people don't really, if you're not a complete moron, you don't budget your life around the bonuses that you may or may not receive. So base compensation has to be extremely high as it is. So them not taking pay cuts is basically saying that they're not going to have whipped cream on the ice cream sundae that they're eating. It doesn't fucking really matter. Like, oh, well, we're going to eat this banana split, but no whipped cream and no maraschino cherry on top, guys. We're doing this for you. We're not taking the bonus whipped cream, but we're still going to eat this whole banana split. Well, you don't get any ice cream at all. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. There has to be a baseline of pay that is like probably mid six figures at least for a lot of these people.
Oh, easily. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And like, woe is you if you don't get a few extra 100K in bonuses. Like you're not anticipating, if you're not a complete moron financially, you're not anticipating that you're getting that money.
There's one thing I will say that I do actually agree, and this isn't just because a certain person implied we never do this, but I will say the number one problem of the esports industry, without a doubt, can be framed this way, is that companies, which if you look at the actual like financial layout and structuring of their company and what they need to succeed in and how likely it is in terms of making a profit, are by definition startups, did pay themselves at the top level, like Riot and every other esport, did pay themselves money as if they already were running like Amazon, except obviously not scaled to a lower level. Like essentially they want to be a startup and get all the VC money, but then also pay themselves the mega buck salary for being the top executive. And so they already ran like a really profitable company that had like a massive revenue cash flow. And like, even if you're not profitable, like you will be anytime you want to be. That is the most inappropriate thing about the esports industry. Because essentially the question people should ask isn't this, Monty, where's the success? The question you ask is this: where did the money go? Now, look, a lot of it did go into player pockets for the salaries. That's true. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, a healthy amount went into the pockets of the people who run the esports teams, who run the esports TOs, who run the game developers. Like, of course it did. So I'm with you. If you want to talk about Riot Games, the part of the company that developed the game, that is a company that made loads of profit. They should get massive salaries. If you're on the esports side, I'm sorry, this doesn't make money yet. You should actually probably be on like what a startup guy would be like, you know, like 80K, and you're just hustling like a motherfucker. No. You've just finished half a decade of getting like 250K plus a massive bonus package, like Monty says, when Worlds comes off and viewership goes up and you get a deal for a sponsorship. Like that is the maddest thing of all. Is like it's the amount of money that was pissed away so that people could sort of laugh that they were a successful businessman or they were killing the game, you know. Because if people don't know, me and Monty aren't talking out our asses. When we turned down that Saudi money, we have had to literally live as though this is a startup, and we don't take big salaries from the company because it isn't funded yet. So we can't do that. And spoiler, if we did anyway, we'd be doing the same as they do. So it has to make sense as a company to take that sort of money. Yeah.
I mean, you and I have taken a shockingly small amount of money out of this company. In fact, we've paid.
It makes sense, though. It's appropriate. Yeah.
Our full-time employees, guys, have been paid more than either me or Thorin. That's just straight up true. And it's fine. Like that's just the way it has been.
That's where the company is. Yeah, it's appropriate. Yeah. That's where we are. That's the level we should be at. Yeah. The difference is it's like if we did this scenario in the same situation, Monty, the equivalent of what Riot's doing, if we did it, was if we had 200k a year salaries, our staff got almost nothing. We fired them all so we could keep our 200k. And at the end of the year, we still have nothing that we're doing that's making the company go. Like, what would that be? But that's how all the companies in esports run. It's why I often tell people, don't say that, like, insert team name lost this money. No, they lost someone else's money. They paid themselves for like $1 million, mate. Reggie is like driving a fucking Lambo. What do you think, mate? Give me a break. Of course he is. Of course he is.
At least Reggie had his website businesses that were actually profitable.
True. Yeah, true.
Yeah, he wasn't just the esports team.
True.
I mean, the real egregious thing is, like, you know, it's companies like Dignitas that don't even have any other form of income, and those executives have been paid a fuck ton of money. Like that is outrageous. Like it's crazy. These, for the most part, a lot of these teams, once the VC came in, because obviously Dignitas is an old team, and OD definitely did run this as, you know, a startup and as a grassroots project. But as soon as they were bought out, like, come on, dude, you think those executives over at CLG that was owned by Madison Square Garden weren't making a bunch of money that didn't make any sense with the revenue of the team? Like, a lot of these esports only teams have been absolute disasters when it comes to just pissing away funds.
Exactly. So enough about people who take in massive venture capital investment and then just fucking pay themselves a huge salary and then just do nothing with the industry. I think people like, in terms of people who take big investment, pay themselves a huge salary, then just leave the company all fucked. I think we need someone like Jacob Wolf to help us cover that. Seems weird. Isn't that like putting the hen in the hen house? Weird. Anyway, whatever. I guess he'll overcome more problems.
That's all right.
The way, the irony of calling your company Overcome and then you just give up. I can't, please. It's too much. It's
Thorin,
too on the nose.
He hasn't given up.
He only explicitly said it's his side hustle now. Imagine that as well. Cool. Oh, that money I invested. She side hustles it. Oh, brilliant. Oh, we'll keep doing that on weekends. What are you talking about?
I just can't imagine.
What a world.
Being an investor in Jacob Wolf's company and then reading on Twitter that it's now his side hustle. Like,
oh, it'd be mad, wouldn't it? I know.
What the fuck, man? I put money into this.
You'll know this. I'll tell you the reason why that is also egregious. Because here's what people told me, who were my advisors in business for this company, when we were originally going to raise a bunch of funding and we were going to have like the company fully funded. They told me that when you raise like that as the individual going to your friends and family, what you're actually basically selling them isn't even your idea. You're selling them that they know you, so they can trust that you won't give up, that you will try your hardest. And because they trust you and who you are, they know if they give you your money, you'll do something good with it. Well, in this analogy, that's like he did that, but then he's just turned around and sort of just be like, well, I mean, the company didn't make it. It's like, I invested in you, motherfucker. You were supposed to go balls to the wall the whole way on this. You can't bail. That's the one person who can't in this analogy. Like, so yeah, just funny how things work out in that way. Because I'll tell you what, if I was someone who himself had done that, I wouldn't maybe be the one shouting from the rooftops like, why isn't everyone calling out people who take investment and pay themselves the money? You fucking idiot. It's you. You're doing that. And the maddest thing is, who should call them out? Me, someone who's never done that, you fucking idiot. And by the way, I don't think anyone's ever listened to any of my content if they managed to come to the conclusion that I don't call out people like Reggie and fucking Steve and Clark. What are you talking about? If anything, mate, I'm just so legit they still do content with me, mate. That's because I actually know how to keep it in my pants. Like, I've called out those people 1 million times, mate. I've always said, by the way, isn't that Richard's main thing, that he always blames the American owners because he hates the way they do the franchise model? It's like, oh, that's what our main bugbears do. Come on. Come correct on that one. Come on.
Also, I think even the owners themselves at this point in time would agree that they took on too much venture capital. But it's more like, I think the other thing too is it's just more complicated, especially with like the more endemic owners. So, you know, the orgs that existed prior to the venture capital rush. So, you know, TSM, Cloud9, Team Liquid, these kind CLG, these kind of teams, if they didn't take the venture capital, they would have died.
Those are good businesses, some of those actual ones. Yeah.
Like there wasn't there wasn't a choice. Like, I think that's the misnomer. It
No,
wasn't
basically the point here is this, Monty. Even though some of those were actually like profitable companies, as far as I know at the time, or doing well, they're like balancing the budget. If everyone has to get 10 million to buy an LCS spot and you don't do it, you're not involved in that game anymore. So you are just priced out of the market, Frisky. Yeah, true.
And the thing is, Riot intentionally, I don't think, like, Riot didn't really care about the money. Like, they're a big company. Maybe they cared about it a little bit, but at the same time, like, they're paying out. You know, at this point in LCS franchising, they've paid out more money to those teams in revenue share than the teams have paid to them in terms of franchise fees. Especially because they've frozen franchise fees right now. And for you guys, it was never about the money. What it was about, and this isn't even necessarily a wrong thing from Riot, was that they wanted to know that there was enough investment behind these teams so that the teams were serious and had stability. Right? They needed to know that the teams had skin in the game with Riot. And also, it created value for the teams. Like, you can say, well, you shouldn't have raised that money. But if like LEC slots, for example, the last LEC slot, Misfits sold for like $30 million, which was way more than the $8 million or $10 million that it cost to buy that slot. So it was objectively a good investment, you know, for the investors in that org. Was it the 100-to-1 investment that they had dreamed of? No, but it was still a win. You know what I mean? And so you had to have, like, Riot needed to have the capital into these teams to show that they could last for a long time, that they could, you know, hang around through the bad times if necessary.
Implying as well, even though it was more overt in Overwatch, I also always took it when they did those things where, you know, there was teams obviously got turned down, like initially when they were back, like Immortals initially got turned down famously, or in VCT, Optic didn't get into it, you know, like another implication of that thing of why you have to have a certain amount of money and they vet how your company does its like business structure, was the implication that, like Overwatch, you're supposed to actually be growing your own fan base and making, like, you're like a partner with them of making the future NBA, where you're going to have your set of fan bases that come to your events, that buy merch from you. That was also implied. That's also, you're right, Monty. You didn't have to have enough money just to buy the players and put them in the game. You were essentially supposed to have X million more so that you could build out the rest of the industry. And obviously that, unfortunately, that part hasn't happened at all. Like, so that part, no one's been able to keep up their end on. Yeah, of course.
But, like, I don't really understand the idea of criticizing endemic team owners for taking capital, because their only choice, if they didn't do that, somebody else would have bought the franchise slot, because there was a feeding frenzy at the time, guys. There would have been traditional sports teams that would have bought that franchise spot, and then their teams would have been worthless.
Yeah, the weird thing, essentially, think about it this way, Monty. Being as Riot are the ones who controlled the franchise system, as Monty just told you, if Jack didn't buy his LCS spot, then guess what? FaZe Clan would be in the LCS instead. How does that? Now, does the FaZe Clan owner losing loads of money while paying himself a contract, how does that fix LCS? Because in this analogy, the Jacob Wolf premise is that if we call out Jack and Steve and Reggie, somehow them not doing that fixes the whole thing. But as you said, it's a fucking finite, it's a zero-sum game. There has to be someone takes that spot. If it isn't them, it's someone else. It's the exact same problem. So ultimately, Riot set up the system. They did. They set up the system.
And Activision Blizzard. And Activision Blizzard, obviously.
Yeah, that was, they spurred the whole thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and like both of these, and they fed off each other to like create the feeding frenzy. And like you just had to be there in 2017 when everybody was like going crazy trying to get into both Overwatch League and LCS in North America. It was huge. I mean, the contracts were actually made better because there was competition between Activision Blizzard and Riot. Like the owners got better deals in the contracts, like better provisions, better clauses, because they were able to play both sides against, in their own benefit, basically. So, and if it hadn't been Cloud9, then it would have been Stan Kroenke, who came into, the big American sports owner who came in and to Overwatch League, or Robert Kraft, who owner of the Patriots, who came in to Overwatch League. Like, they could have ended up with an LCS team as well. There were enough people to fill out those slots, guys. It was a competitive process. And basically, if your choice is, I have to take on venture capital because my org that I've worked on for years goes to worthless if I don't get one of these slots, what the fuck would you do? Nobody likes how this turned out, but it wasn't the fault of the endemic owners that they were making these decisions.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.